Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am tired. Oh, one of the hosts. And one of the hosts.
And I'm Eric, and I'm not so tired, but yeah, it's been a long week. We'll just leave it at
that. And we're going to be talking about the Season 2, Episode 7, Scene Stealers. Which is interesting. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into that real quick, can I make one little comment? While I was editing the last episode, I noticed some comments I made about reviews, and I realized that I might not have been real clear on something about them. When people talk about getting reviews for their podcasts, and it's going to help us be found or get on the charts and all that stuff, that's not how that works, but I did not mean to imply, if it came across this way, that reviews are not of any value to other people, because it's got something called, what's the term? Social confirmation or social affirmation or something like that. Basically, it's, if you're looking at a bunch of podcasts and one's got a lot of really good reviews and one has no reviews, you're more likely to pick the one that's got a lot of good reviews. So they do have a value. It's just not the value that most people claim.
They're also of great value to my ego. So in that respect.
No. Wait a minute. You're Canadian. You have no ego.
Oh, sure I do. It's just, wrapped up in Timbits or something. We're just really polite about it.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, if you like the podcast and you want to review it, that's awesome. We are happy. It makes me happy.
Social proof. That was the term.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is.
There it is. Finally got it. Yes. Anyway. Enough of diversions.
He has some timers. Sometimes he remembers. Sometimes he doesn't.
And it's getting worse all the time. Anyway.
Alrighty. So, Scene Stealers. This episode first aired November 15th, 1983. And it was written by Joyce Armour, Richard DeRoy, and Judy Neers. We've got 3 writers for this episode. And directed by Peter Medak. And I thought I wanted to just do a couple of overall thoughts. The first one, I don't know if you've seen people talking about this in the Facebook group, but there is a book that just came out called Running the Show by Jeff Melvoin, and I have ordered it, and it is in my possession. So I have started to read it. And
you got it before me. I'm still getting ready to order it. I've got to I've got to pretend to have some money somewhere.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm pretending to have a credit card somewhere, so that's how I ordered it. I figured it was relevant to our interests, so I ordered it. Because we've already covered one episode that Jeff Melvoin wrote, and actually he talks about in the first chapter how he got a spec script accepted, and it was actually because of Steele's Gold, where I guess initially he had submitted a script that wasn't necessarily about old California, but there was a costume party, and instead of Sherlock and a clown and a bunny rabbit, I think Laura was dressed as a bunny, and somebody else committed a crime dressed as a carrot. And he ended up yelling, "Stop that carrot!" And she ran off. The bunny rabbit ran off after the carrot. Yeah, it's really bad.
It's good, but it's bad.
Yeah. And he even admits that in the episode and says that the episode itself did not get accepted, but he was hired to write a spec script on the basis of the line, "Stop that carrot." So and it eventually became Old California, and it was "Stop that Zorro" instead of "Stop that carrot." But so far, it's quite interesting, and I hope to, as we keep reading it, there's only one chapter technically dedicated to his time on Remington Steele, but there are some good insights as to like what writers do, staff writers do, spec scripts and things like that. So I think it'll be enlightening for us as we go forward. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because this episode had 3 writers, which is new. I don't think, well, it's not new. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that other scripts have had more than one writer working on them, but they haven't been officially credited the way that they are here. So yeah, we've got 3 writers and directed by Peter Medak, and I don't recognize any of the names either. So these are all first time, I think, for this. So yeah.
For some reason, when you're talking about the Stop That Carrot line, I can't help but flash to get this cheese to sick bay. I'm sorry.
I love
Voyager reference.
Yeah. It's an image that when I even when I read it in the book, I had a chuckle. So I'm sure that that would have been really funny on screen, and it's a shame that we didn't get to see the bunny chase the carrot, but we did get a few good jokes regarding costumes.
It's a dad joke. It's a dad joke.
Really a dad joke. It's a good dad joke, though. I enjoy it. So yeah, this episode, I have a sort of a love-hate relationship with this episode.
Okay.
And I don't know if you feel the same way, but there are some elements of this episode that I really enjoy. Some of the commentary that the show is making on Hollywood and making fun of the way the commercial industry operates, and even sort of poking fun, because in Judith's book, there's a little asterisk at the bottom after the TV Guide listing that says this episode was written as an attempt at poking fun about the rumors circulating that Pierce and Stephanie didn't get along. And I don't want to get into that because that's not really what this podcast is about. But I do like the idea that they are poking fun at the concept of 2 actors that have immeasurable chemistry on screen that maybe don't get along in real life, because that happens in a lot of shows. So there's stuff like that I enjoy, but I don't know why they would go out of their way to have so few episodes with Pierce and Stephanie even in the room together. Like there's I counted, it's 12 minutes before we even see them talk to each other. And in some ways it can work. Like we had To Stop a Steele, where they were separate for most of the episode, and it's very funny because we've got Maury Singer and we've got everything that was going on with that episode. But I don't know, something about this one feels like they just didn't want them interacting. And I don't know if that's part of the metaphor of, oh, these guys don't get along, we don't want them in the room, or if it was just, I don't know, but it seems very deliberate, and it seems, we'll get into some more reasons why I think that they're doing it. But what do you think?
I didn't even really notice that they weren't together all that much. So I guess I abstain. But, talking about actors and on-screen chemistry versus their real chemistry, sometimes you're right. It's like night and day. They can't stand each other personally, but they get along on the screen really well, and it works. But then there's others where it's just it just works in every way. And the thing about this episode is it reminded me of a series of commercials done back in the starting around, I think, like 1976, 75, somewhere in there. And they ran for about like 7 or 8 years. And it was the James Garner, Marriott Hartley Polaroid TV commercials. And I don't know if you remember those or not.
I wasn't alive in 1976.
Well, I didn't mean that you were. You might have heard about it. I mean, like
I've heard
you might have heard about a TV show called Remington Steele.
Oh, really? Is that what this is? Okay. Yeah. I thought I just wandered into a microphone one day, and here I am.
Yes, we take in strays and puppies too. And the thing about those commercials, there were like 250 of those commercials produced, and they got along so well, and their interaction and their interplay was so natural that, well, there were a couple things. First of all, after about like the first year, James Garner was under contract to Polaroid to do these commercials, but Marriott Hartley was getting paid a day rate, which is like okay, you come in, we're going to shoot 2 commercials. We'll give you $50 or whatever it is. And after like the first year, James Garner said, well, we're going to keep doing this, but we're going to change something here. You're going to give Mariette Hartley a contract, because if you don't give her a contract and you just can't try and keep doing the day rate on her, I'm not doing the commercials anymore. Well, they didn't want that because these commercials were hot. Everybody loved these commercials. And so before they got to Mariette Hartley, he called Mariette Hartley and said, they're going to call you, hold out for a really good price on the contract. Because, I mean, they got along so well. In fact, they got along so well that she had to have T-shirts made that said for herself, I am not James Garner's wife. and for her husband, a shirt that said, I am not James Garner. And for their son, I am not James Garner's son. And Garner's wife had to have a T-shirt made that says, I am James Garner's wife.
Ooh.
because like I said, their interaction on the camera was so natural. Yeah. And it carried over into their personal relationship too, which is one of the reasons why Garner was so insistent that she get a contract. And then he was insistent that she hold out for a really good price. That, it's just one of those, it was an amazing series of commercials, and it was just a very fun series of commercials. And sometimes it worked great.
Yeah. And it's funny, that commercial didn't come to mind, although I have heard of them. The commercial that
popped into
my yes, I just haven't seen
Sarah Beth from what was it? Original Star Trek series episode. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway.
Yeah, no, the commercial series that came to mind for me was the Gold Blend couple. Do you remember this one?
The what?
The Gold Blend couple. So this was
Blend?
Gold Blend. Gold and then Blend, BLEND. It was a coffee series of coffee commercials. So
okay, never heard of it.
Yeah, so this was a British television advertising campaign for Nescafé, and it ran from 1987 to 1993. And I pulled up the Wikipedia on it because this is what I immediately thought of, even though this is after this episode aired, obviously. The original campaign ran for 12 45-second installments between 1987 and 1993, and it starred Anthony Head and Sharon Mon as Tony and Sharon, a couple who begin a slow-burning romance over a cup of the advertised coffee. The ads were in a serial format, with each ending with a cliffhanger. The commercials were extremely popular, and as time went on, the appearance of a new installment gained considerable media attention. They're one of the most famous examples of serialized advertising. Beginning in 1990, new versions of the ads were produced for the American market, where Gold Blend was called Taster's Choice. You may have heard of those. And the ads were referred to as the Taster's Choice Saga. Head and Mon reprised their roles, Tony being renamed Michael, but used American accents in the reshot ads. After the first 2 nearly identical ads, the American ads diverged into their own storyline. So the campaign was such a success, producing various tie-in products, including a novelization entitled Love Over Gold by Susan Moody, a video compilation of the ads, and 2 music CDs. So, they had notable effect on sales, increasing them over 50% in the UK alone, and they've been heralded as the premier example of positioning, creating an atmosphere of sophistication while remaining relatable. So this is what I thought of, because they were frequently, according to this, compared to a soap opera, even sometimes favorably compared to their contemporaries such as Dynasty, Moonlighting, or 30-something. Yeah, and then in 2005, the campaign ranked number 20 on ITV's Best Ever Ads, and ranked 31 in a similar list. So this is what I thought of, because Anthony Head was the first celebrity I ever met, got his autograph, and he was Giles on, you can guess, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
how did I know that was coming?
Yeah, there's a Buffy tie in there, but I did remember seeing these commercials. I did remember this whole romance over coffee thing, and it made me think of this episode because they're supposedly having this romance over Chef Gaston's really terrible looking food. So
yes.
And so that, with that segue, we'll probably go into the TV guide listing. So an actor's pet parrot is poisoned pecking at the beef bourguignon during the filming of a commercial. The question is, who was the intended victim? I use the TV guide listing because of the alliteration, pet parrot is poisoned pecking. And just because I thought it was fun. So,
sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I said, this one also follows Love Among the Steele. And I think we have this habit of putting these episodes that are maybe, I don't know, like, I don't think it's terrible, but it's certainly not as good as the last episode. So maybe that's where my mind is at, where we just saw a really good episode that focuses very heavily on the relationship, and now they're barely in this one together. Could be why it feels like such a switch. But we get this opening scene. We are immediately dropped sort of via shaky cam effect into the viewpoint of the villain as she walks onto a soundstage and unlocks a prop trailer. And she opens up a box of a frozen dinner in order to sprinkle something on it, presumably poison. But this is the first thing that really confused me. If this is supposed to be a frozen dinner, then A, why did it look fully cooked? And if that were the case, wouldn't it just go bad if it was left out like that? Shouldn't it be in a freezer? And how can they be sure? There was a whole bunch of boxes in that container, fridge, freezer. I'm not even sure what it was. How could Matey be sure that Heather would eat, or Derek would eat that specific one? Unless she was the one that gets it out of there, which, okay, she probably would be, but help me.
Okay, well, I've got questions too. Okay, but before I get to the questions, my questions and your questions, I got to say, dark sound stages, places like that tend to give me the creeps. When I was
super creepy.
When I was in grade school, I had a newspaper route, and I had to go out and deliver papers in the dark on Sunday mornings. And one of the places I had to deliver was a truck yard. And I would go through, and all these semi trucks were parked there in the dark. And I had never seen the movie Duel. In fact, I have still not to this day seen the movie Duel. But yet I still had this vision of these trucks coming to life and chasing me.
No thanks. No thanks.
Yeah. But some of my questions about this was, first of all, the truck is locked with a padlock, but the villain has a key. So we've already kind of narrowed down our suspects. Yeah. Well, let's go through it. Yes, she pulls out a box or the villain pulls out a box of frozen TV dinner. TV dinners are actually fully cooked before they're frozen.
Right. But I mean, it's not even sealed. She just sort of peels back.
That was one of my points.
Should have some sort of seal on it.
Yeah, it should be glued shut.
Yeah.
And in fact, later on, when we see them opening one, you can see that it's been glued shut, and they actually have to rip the flap open. Well, that's the way those things work. It's called sealing it in so nobody can mess with it and add poison to it. And when it's pulled out, I mean, you can see the frost and such on the top. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't look like that prop truck is refrigerated.
No,
unless it's a small refrigerator inside the truck that's being powered somehow, but we don't see that. So yeah, I mean, it would be thawed. And you're right. If it wasn't for the fact that we find out later that the person who's actually the poisoner is the prop person and handling all this, if it were somebody else, you're right. How would they know which one? I mean, it would just be one of those things where they're just hoping that eventually they'll get to it and somebody eats it and somebody dies. But yeah, I mean, we've already got two major clues here. If it's the Toodaloo all over again. It's right there in front of us.
That's right. Yeah.
The person has the key to the padlock on the prop truck, and the person who poisons it has to know somehow which one of those meals is going to get served to who.
Yeah.
I mean, we already got the answer and we didn't even know it.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not very good at remembering stuff. So if it were me, I'd probably grab the wrong one and then not poison anybody. I'd be I would be the most inefficient murderer ever. I'm just saying. It's not even marked.
Put a little mark on the end of it or something.
Well, but it's not. We don't see her mark it in any way, because that would be the thing that you would want to do, since they all are Anyway, so we're not even past scene 1 and already it's very confusing.
Already there's major problems and we haven't even left the
we haven't even gotten to the theme song yet, so
yes.
All right. Moving on. We are on the set of a commercial. Laura is on a very large-looking cell phone talking to Mildred, saying that it looks as if Mr. Steele has everything under control. This is another one of her situations where she's on the phone, frozen smile on her face. She's talking to someone on the other end who is saying something completely different, but she wants her client to hear what she's saying, which is always funny. So she says, it looks like Mr. Steele has everything under control. Meanwhile, Mildred can't find him anywhere. Laura
she uses the term gin mill. Is she still on her Sam Spade kick?
Well, then she says, should I start checking the saloons in the valley? And I'm like, wait, what? Are we in an old Western now? Like, when did that happen? This is still the 80s, right?
Yeah.
I'm confused. And Laura tells her that would be an excellent idea and that the client is anxiously waiting. So she hangs up, then turns to her client, a woman named Doris Wagenbacher, which is a name.
Yeah, it's a name.
It's a name.
It's definitely a name.
It's something. That they made great progress in locating their star. Mrs. Wagenbacher tells her that she looks and seems honest, but if she's doing a number on her, to which Laura interrupts and says, this is the Remington Steele Agency. We don't do numbers, which I would like to argue, Laura, that's all you do. Well, literally, that's the ethos of your organization. Is doing a number.
Well, part of Doris's comment is that, okay, you look honest, you seem honest. That gives you 3 on a scale of 10. Well, 3? That's 2.
Yeah, I thought that too. I'm like, wait a minute. Her math doesn't add up. All right, no. Sure. But yeah, we don't do numbers. And Mrs. Wagenbacher then continues to emphasize that this isn't some infantile sitcom to save a floundering network, or a pointless miniseries. Ouch. Ouch. Target acquired. Like that was deliberate.
Yeah, this is important. I know it's a commercial.
Important.
Well, you know,
the way she says it's like, too.
Yeah, I know. Very condescending. You know, it's like the television networks. You know, the streaming services, YouTube. You know, people think, oh, these are content delivery systems. No, they're not. They're commercial delivery systems. I mean, it's like ham exists so you can make gravy. It doesn't exist so you can eat ham.
I like ham. What are you trying to say?
No, it only exists to make gravy. Eating the ham is just kind of an obligation.
Do you make gravy out of ham? I am very confused. I've never had ham gravy. Is that a thing?
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Clearly I have been missing out.
Oh.
I know about turkey gravy, beef gravy, chicken gravy, and
ham
poutine.
Gravy.
Okay, so
it's like it's ambrosia.
It's not just food. It is the food. It is the linchpin of the food industry. This is what I'm learning right now.
Okay, Doris, thank you.
Say Wagenbacher, it takes longer. So we've got her emphasizing that this is the linchpin of television. It is the commercial, the hottest commercial on the tube. It is the E.T. of frozen foods. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that would have been the movie to reference at that time, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's going a little over the top for just a TV commercial.
You think? I mean, to be fair, though, in reality, television was like the medium for advertising then, and commercials in many cases, as we've already commented on too, had storylines, characters. Mm-hmm. You think about like the fact that they credit the movie Jaws with saving the film industry. One of the reasons why that is because Jaws ended the practice of road showing, where you only show the movie in certain areas and then it moves along the country. But it also this was the first movie where the advertisers realized, hey, wait a minute, we have TV. We can advertise movies on TV. Jaws was the first film to get 30-second TV ad spots on television, and that was huge, right? So she's not wrong in the sense that that's how you advertised at that time. TV was the best way to get people to see what it is you wanted them to see, and they even geared things to their audience in a way that you don't really see anymore. Like, for example, children's toys and cereals and things like that were all shown. Those ads were all shown during kids' cartoons. Not because the parents are watching the cartoons, because the kids are. So then the kids go to
nag their parents to buy it.
You know, I want this, I want a Cabbage Patch doll, whatever. But like, that doesn't really happen anymore because kids don't really see ads the same way. Most of the time it's through a streaming service that they're watching TV. So ads are usually on, like as you said, YouTube or some other platform where you get annoyed and you just hit the skip ad thing when it comes up, right? But like, at this point,
it's so long as the skip ad button is there, because YouTube and others are starting to eliminate that, because guess what? People are actually using that skip button.
Yeah, because we don't want to watch your stupid commercials. They may be the linchpin, but they're irritating. So,
yeah. Well, can you remember when you purchased a subscription to your cable TV service or a streaming service because you didn't get ads? That was the whole that was the whole point of buying those things, is that you were paying them for not getting the ads. You were replacing the ad revenue with your subscription dollars. And now, no, that's not enough anymore.
Well, that's I mean, in Britain, for the longest time you had, I don't know if it's still the case, but for the longest time, if you owned a TV, you had to pay a licensing fee for your TV. And the reason for that, I know I thought it was odd too, because Scott made a comment about his TV license, and I'm like, what? Do you need to like learn how to operate it? Is there a test? No, it's because the BBC doesn't have commercials. So you basically would pay this TV licensing fee for no commercials. That was the trade-off. Now with streaming, I don't know if that's still the thing, but yeah.
Here in the U.S., back in the, what was it? It would have been about like the 60s or early 70s. There was actually a hidden tax on recording tapes, audio and video recording tapes, because the record industry, we're losing money. People are copying our records onto cassette so they can play them in their car and listen to them. That's not fair. So, yeah.
Napster. Okay, so as we continue to go forward.
Great, you just got us banned in 37 countries.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? Crap. Doris goes on to point out that they've already lost a day's worth of shooting, and that Laura promised to have Derek Vivian, their star, there that morning. Just as she says this, the commercial's other star, Heather, comes flouncing down the lawn in a flimsy nightgown, offering to do the commercial without Derek. And Mrs. Wagenbacher humors her, telling her, "You are so flexible. You're so gallant."
Well, I like the beginning of that, though, when Heather comes down and says, "I've been thinking." Of course you have. As if, no, you have no capacity to think.
Yeah, this is definitely out of your wheelhouse. She reminds me a little bit of Chrissy Carstairs in the sense that like they've definitely patterned her after her. And
the dumb blonde.
In some ways it works. In some ways I think she's a little over the top, more so than it's probably what she's supposed to be. But yeah, I've been thinking. Of course you have.
Well, and then I like Doris's comment about, when Heather says, "Well, then it's okay." And well, of course, just give me a moment to rewrite the script, rearrange the set, restructure the business. And then she turns to Laura and says, she could do the scene alone. It's a love scene. So snarky. So snarky. I love it.
Because I have to point out a Buffy episode reference in every
of course you do.
recording that we do.
Of course you do.
There is
if this was a drinking game.
Yeah, you do. there's an episode where there's this prophecy, of course, because there's always a prophecy, and Buffy is irritated because it takes place the night she's supposed to go out on a date. And Giles, Anthony Head's character, says to her, "Oh, of course not. I'll just go back. I'll just get in my time machine, go back in time to the 12th century and get the vampires to postpone their ancient prophecy while you take in dinner and a show." And she responds with, "Okay, at this point, you're abusing sarcasm." So this is what it reminded me of, because it was like, yeah, sure, I'll just restructure my whole business and change the set and rewrite the script, and
yeah.
And then turning to Laura, you're right. She says, "Oh yeah, she could do it. It's a love scene." But she says, "This is a couple. This requires a couple, and a couple is one of each sex." And then there's a beat, and then she says, "At least on the screen," which is a very interesting line to put here, and a tad risque, I would think. But also a nod to maybe some of the Hollywood stars that were famously found out later on, like Rock Hudson, to be gay, but were supposed to
Raymond
appear
Burr.
Yeah. Cary Grant.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Although that one is still being debated.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is. But still, like there was a number of stars that were that we now know. But yeah. So then she warns Laura that Derek can be a corrupting influence and that he might have gotten Steele caught up in his childish hijinks. And Laura assures her when Mr. Steele is working, he's deadly serious.
Yeah, right.
Really? Okay, sure. Someone's got to believe that. So then we get a scene change. And of course, he's fencing with Derek. They're playing out a scene from a movie that he was in 1953 called Young Raleigh. I could not find any confirmation for any of these movies. So are they fake? I'm assuming
they're
fake.
all, as far as I can tell, they're all fake. Now, it's great set decoration. And
it's fantastic.
The fake movie posters are fantastically done.
They are good.
As are the promotional photos. I mean, somebody spent a lot of time doing those things for just a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
So hats off to whoever is responsible for that set decoration and those props, because, wow, well done.
Well, not just that, but the type of movies that they sort of invented, like Young Raleigh, The Passionate Troubadour, The Pirate Prince. Like, I could see these being real.
Well, they all sound like the types of things that would have been, 40s movies, 30s movies, the serials.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally consistent. Like with, we were talking here a couple episodes back, Errol Flynn movies. I mean, that's kind of what these movie posters. He
references them later.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what these movie posters kind of remind me of is that type of a movie.
Exactly. Yeah, they're really sort of adventure, swashbuckling, exciting.
Yep.
And of course, Steele is loving every minute of it, because he's getting to he's getting to just do what he loves to do, and he
gets to play being an actor in a movie with a real actor from a movie.
Well, an actor from a movie who can't remember his lines because his brain is pickled in booze, but still,
that's beside the point. That's beside the point.
So yeah, they're playing out this fencing scene. Steele compliments him. Vivian suggests they do it again. He says he's exhausted and they have to go to the shoot. And I wanted to I'm going to scroll up here on my script and read the description of Derek, because I kind of liked it, and it was very. Derek is a complicated character for me in this episode. And there's some moments with Steele as well and Laura that. All right, where is it here? Scrolling down. Where?
Page 8.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here we go. So Derek is 30 years of stardom wrapped in one handsome, albeit slightly dissipated package. He's flamboyant, childlike, determined to charm. So this is definitely how he comes across here. When Steele says, we got to go to the shoot, he seems like a disappointed child. Can we do one more scene? Please, let's do the Passionate Troubadour. And then Steele, almost like a weary parent, says, look, I promised you the scene from Young Raleigh, and now we need to go get your shoes.
That's right.
Go get where are your shoes? I don't know where your shoes are. Sorry. I'm replaying a scene from my earlier. It's fine.
I was going to say that's those lines are not in the script anywhere.
Definitely not. No, but he seems like, this just sad child wanting to do more playtime, and then Steele, he must really be tired if he's turning down acting out another scene with an old Hollywood star. He must have really worn him out.
Maybe not so much that he's worn him out as much as it is, okay, it's nagging at the back of his mind. Laura is really going to be chewing on him if he doesn't get him there soon.
And not in the fun.
And, okay.
Sorry, we just had Love Among the Steeles, so I'm just saying. But you're right. He probably has Laura in the back of his mind saying, "Where is he?" Blah, blah, blah. So he knows that they've got to go. Vivian turns around to take his parrot, who is named Olivier, with him. To which Steele asks how long he's had him. Vivian says about 12 hours and that she was a gift. They go to get one more drink. And this is another question I had, because we see Derek's apartment later on. Is this still his place, or is this like some sort of bar or lounge that he just hangs out at? It feels like this is his place because it's got his swords and stuff, right?
Yeah, that was my impression, and I had the same question as well. When you look over and there's a guy, there's a bartender there.
That's what really can he pays a bartender. I guess if he's an alcoholic, he'd pay a bartender. That's.
I was gonna say he wants to have that booze there for him, and
true. True, I guess. And you can see that Derek points out he's played all the great roles, including Hamlet and Beckett, and now he has to play second lead to a platter of pre-shunk Chef Gaston's beef bourguignon, which he sounds pretty bitter about. And I think I would be too. That stuff looks nasty.
Well, I like the context of that, though, because he tells Steele, one more drink, and Steele's trying to get him away, and then he says this line, and then Steele turns to the bartender and says, "Make it a double."
Yeah, Steele's probably himself.
He sympathizes with him.
He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, give us another drink." So they arrive at the commercial. Derek is wasted. He's leaning on Steele as Steele escorts him in. He's quoting lines from another one of his films, The Pirate Prince. And then he scoffs at the idea that the booze has gotten to him, proceeds to fall flat on his face. Well,
yeah, I love it.
Somebody else, bring on the food. So yeah, this is good. I like this. And then they take out the food from what I can only assume is that container / maybe a freezer. Maybe.
And the flap of the box is glued down.
Yes. What the heck? So, okay.
Continuity much?
And then Stan suggests that they put carnauba wax on the food to make it look better, which is a common trick that they use in the TV industry. But would it be edible? I mean...
I had that question too. I don't know. It doesn't... they're going to put wax on something somebody's supposed to eat. That's what I got in my notes right here. I wouldn't think so.
To be fair, carnauba wax is an ingredient in licorice, so it's not like we don't eat it.
That explains why I don't like licorice.
But spraying it on top of frozen food, or not frozen food, warmed up, whatever, like it. And they didn't warm it up. They just pulled the top off and stuck it on the table. So, ew.
Yeah.
You're supposed to put it in a microwave, right? You're supposed to heat it.
An oven.
Somehow. Apply heat.
Stick it over a fire or whatever.
I mean, maybe that wouldn't improve it. I don't know, but something. So they... And normally, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally when you have a episode of something where you've got characters that are supposed to be eating, it's my understanding that they don't usually actually eat the food. They usually, when you see a dinner scene, for example, they're usually moving the food around the plate, or they lift it up to their mouth and then the camera will cut away and cut back or something like that. Because if you're doing more than one take, you're going to have your actors shoveling food into their mouth all the time. So,
there's two problems. First of all, they've got to match the action. And so they've got to remember, what they were doing, what they had on their fork or spoon, whatever. to match it. And then, yeah, you're right, constantly eating the food. From what I understand, there's two types of people that eat the food. New actors who haven't figured it out yet, or actors who are really, really into their character, like brain fart.
Jared Leto?
No, The Office, Dwight. Rainn Wilson.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He would apparently really eat. And I guess when he was doing a scene where he was eating, he was just shoving it in his mouth, just like a pig. And I guess some of his fellow actors were just astounded that he could manage to do that. And yeah. And in fact, I think I remember there was a comment by, what's his name? The guy that played Michael, that he made the mistake.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, him. Yeah, that he made a mistake. In one of the episodes of eating some of the ice cream cake that they had in one of the scenes, and he had to keep eating it every time they reshot a scene or did a background shot. And I guess by the time the end of the day came around, he was just And
I mean, this is not exactly something that you'd want to eat and do a lot of takes of. This Chef Gaston's. It looks disgusting. So,
I mean, there's good TV dinners and then there's bad TV dinners, and I think Chef Gaston is like down at the far end of bad.
I think if you have to put chef before your
Chef Boyardee would disagree.
Boyardee. I was going to say, no offense. Please do not sue us, Chef Boyardee. To be fair,
anybody that loves Chef Boyardee, we love you. You are our friend.
But if you have to like make it sound fancy when it's clearly it's a TV dinner, like let's be real here. Yeah. It's not a gourmet meal.
No, it's not high-end cuisine. Yeah,
no, it seems silly, but it kind of surprised me that they had the actors even eating the food to begin with, and then spraying it with carnauba wax and taking it out totally not heated.
Now now that you say that, I don't know that they actually said that. Like Derek, he was talking about how Heather was shoving the food in his mouth. He never said he actually swallowed it, because I know a lot of times in TV shows they have what's called a
spit bucket.
Spit bucket, yes.
Yeah.
So that they could put the food in their mouth and appear to be eating it and even chew it, but then they spit it out. Yeah. So, I mean,
no thanks.
Yeah, not really swallowing. So that could be what's going on here.
I mean, you'd still taste
that's true. That's true.
That's why, like wine tasting, you spit the wine out, but you still taste the wine. To be fair, wine tastings seem really pointless because you spit the wine out. But
why do you? I mean, what's the point?
I mean, that kind of perfectly good wine, and you're just getting rid of it.
I mean,
but
at least put it to use. Put it to use.
You could get as drunk as Derek.
That's right. Yeah, come to Anchorage. We've got breweries, we've got distilleries, we've got hard cider places. If you want to ruin your liver, this is the place to do it.
Is that their tourism slogan? Come here and ruin your liver.
No, but I think it should be. We've got more than our fair share. More brew pubs than we're entitled to have. We got dozens of breweries. So
done my share, your share, his share. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and in a state that has less than 1 million people, we've got a dozen breweries, a distillery, and at least one hard cider place. So I don't know.
You also have a lot of snow, so I can see why that would be.
We do a lot of drinking in the winter, yes.
Yeah. I'm a Canadian, I understand. So we then see Derek practicing the commercial or rehearsing the commercial with a very unimpressed Heather. He says, "My lamb, my pet, my most treasured possession, you think only of me." She asks in an expressionless voice, "How can you tell?" He replies, "Because you've prepared me a feast fit for a king, a repast to tickle the most prejudiced palate. Chef Gaston's beef bourguignon." No, thank you.
Heather clearly would rather be somewhere else doing something else, like do-it-yourself lobotomy. Oh no, wait, she already did that one.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. She did it to pay for the enhancements. So they sit down. They're told to sit down. Heather is told to lean forward, and Derek sarcastically says, revealing most, if not all, of her talent.
Great line. I mean, from what you said early on, about this not being one of the best scripts, that's true. But they have got some fantastic lines.
This is why, like I said, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this episode, because when it's good, it's really good, and then it's got some bits where I'm like, this is good. And then when she stands up and says, just because I didn't study at the old Victrola doesn't mean I don't know my craft. Old Victrola.
Yeah.
Okay? Then he asks her what craft that is, assault or landing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
They really, really don't like each other. They're told
there's
to sit
so many
down.
images that come to mind with that last line.
Isn't there? It's, yeah. They're told to sit down and go back for a take. They do, but Derek wants to make a small change. He wants to feed her instead of the other way around. Oh, she does not like this. She says, I always feed him. It's what I do. It's my, what was it? She says,
it defines my character. It's contemporary. It's dynamic. It's something Joan Collins would do. And excuse me, Joan Collins is the height and stature. Nothing against Joan Collins, but I mean, she's not exactly, if I were an actress and I was going to look at somebody I wanted to emulate and look up to, I might look a little higher than that.
Yeah, well, I was almost named after her character on Dynasty, so...
Which is?
Alexis. That was almost my name. My dad put his foot down. He's like, we're not naming her after that B word. So I was... Yeah.
I'm going to have to remember that, yeah.
Something Joan Collins would do.
SteeleWatching with Alexis.
Yeah, no. I do like Derek's reasoning when he says, if I love the sow so much, wouldn't I want her to experience this glistening glop? His line is really good too. And while they're arguing, the parrot goes over and tries the food. Stan, the director who takes far too much pride in this, gets frustrated and tells Mady, the prop food designer, to get the parrot out of there, as he is destroying his composition. Which I think the very nature of it did that on its own, but whatever.
Yeah.
But before anyone can do anything, the parrot keels over dead.
Yeah.
Did this make you think of something? Because this made me think of the Monty Python parrot skit.
I know a little bit about Monty Python. I've seen a little bit of Monty Python. I'm a huge fan of the Ruddles, which is Eric Idle.
Yeah.
But I'm not really that into a lot of the Monty Python stuff. I've got a passing familiarity with it, so it's not the sort of thing that would come to mind to me.
Okay,
readily.
So this is all right. I'm going down this rabbit hole for a second, because this particular skit, this pet shop skit, you've got a guy who comes in, he's bought a parrot, he took the parrot home, the parrot died, he brings the parrot back, and he's trying to tell the guy that the parrot's dead, and the owner is insisting that the parrot is not dead, right? He keeps saying that the parrot's alive, and he points out that the parrot is nailed down to its perch, and the owner's like, well, of course it was nailed there. If it hadn't been nailed down there, it would have flown away. And then the guy with the parrot says, mate, this bird wouldn't voom if you put 4 million volts through it. He's bleeding demised. And then this bit is what I thought of when I saw the parrot keel over, because it's probably the most famous Monty Python bit. The owner tries to tell him he's pining, and then the parrot guy says, he's not pining, he's passed on. This parrot is no more. He has ceased to be. He's expired and gone to meet his maker. He's a stiff, bereft of life. He rests in peace. If you hadn't nailed him to the perch, he'd be pushing up daisies. Its metabolic processes are now history. He's off the twig. He's kicked the bucket. He's shuffled off his mortal coil, run down the curtain, and joined the bleeding choir invisible. This is an ex-parrot. And that's what I thought of.
Can you imagine trying to remember all of that?
Oh my God, it would be so hard. I'm reading it, obviously.
I mean, how many times either he practiced it a lot, or they had to do a lot of takes of that, because
it's really funny. And I don't know why I thought of it. I think it was just Steele walking with the parrot in the plastic bag that made me think of it. But like, yeah, that's the next scene. But yeah, I thought of that little bit. So if anyone's seen the Monty Python Parrot Pet Shop skit, it's really funny. But yeah, he's walking with the dead parrot in a plastic bag. Mrs. Wagenbacher complains that her stars have locked themselves away. She's lost 2 days of shooting, and all she has to show for it is a dead parrot. An ex-parrot, if you will. And Steele tells Mrs. Wagenbacher, who says, "Call me Doris, it's faster," which is good because it's faster to type as well when I was typing out my notes. They will examine the food and perform an autopsy on the bird. He tells her that it could be an attempt to poison one of their stars. She seems upset at first, which Steele assumes is emotional upset, concern for her stars, but instead she reveals that if Derek and Heather find out about it, they will run for the hills and never come back. And he's kind of appalled. Is that all you are worried about? And she says they have captured the heart of viewers, and without them, there is no Chef Gaston commercials. And she laments that it was easier when they just had dancing cigarette packs and Speedy Alka-Seltzer.
I liked those commercials. I thought they were fun, but what do I know?
I get a kick out of every time we go to the drive-in. Mm-hmm. They show, it's clearly a modern day drive-in, and they do have modern day ads, but they also have old ads from way back when drive-ins were far more popular, and they show those ads too, and they're really funny in ways that they shouldn't be funny. There's one for frozen pickles. Just frozen pickles. Apparently you can buy them in the snack bar. They're called chili dillies. Yeah, it's super gross. I can't even imagine. But the ads for the chili dillies are so, I don't know if they realized how potentially obscene these ads are, but there's one shot where you see mom and dad, the silhouette of them, and they both are about to eat a frozen pickle, and you can imagine what that looks like, and I kill myself laughing every time I see the chili dilly ad. So yeah, makes me think of that. Steele wishes Doris goodbye, and then she tells him to call her Mrs. Wagenbacher. He puts Olivier, the parrot, into the trunk of the rabbit, and Laura catches up with him. And this is where I have in my notes that this is 12 minutes in, and this is the first time they've spoken to each other. Mm. So this is part of it that I'm not keen on. Not that it has to be them in every scene together, but it just feels like they're very far apart in this episode. Yeah. She tells him that either Derek and Heather aren't home or they're too terrified to come to the door. Steele says it's understandable as one of them might be a murderer. And Laura's like, let's not jump to conclusions. It could have been sunstroke. And Steele suggests, or that last martini Derek gave him. She says, or the lights might have spoiled the food. And they're running down reasons it could have been. And then all of a sudden, her car turns on somehow and nearly runs them down.
With no visible driver again.
No driver. I couldn't see a driver.
It's like Love Among the Steel.
Yeah. Steele tells her to look on the bright side, saying that this at least saved them the autopsy. And the food was definitely poisoned. So that was kind of funny. Yeah. And Laura says we just have to find out who it was meant for. So we get a scene change. They've decided to divide and conquer after the car is stolen. She talks to Derek. He talks to Heather. I can only assume, and this was another thing I was curious about, why not send Steele to talk to Derek since he already seems to have a rapport with him? Or is it just because she's afraid that he might end up doing more movie scenes with him?
Well, since he was obviously late getting Derek to the set, and since Derek was obviously well-oiled, she might not have wanted to go down that road again.
Fair enough. But then she puts him in a room with someone whose talent resides.
Exists.
Yeah. Trying to find a delicate way to say that. Yeah. Yeah. She does her best work from the prone position, as was said about Chrissy Carstairs.
Yes. Yeah.
Seems a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe she trusts him more with her than with Derek.
Yeah, you know what? Probably, yeah. She's like, well, worst comes to worst, he sleeps with her. I'll get him back the next day. He's not going to stick around. So yeah, Derek is giving a toast to Olivier, causing Laura to roll her eyes. He asks if they arrested Heather yet, calling her the silicone starlet. And he says that the commercials are successful because of his talent and her cleavage, adding that D-cups are a dime a dozen. He shows her the gift baskets filled with booze that he says arrives every morning with a note that says, to the real star of the Chef Gaston commercials, and signs it a devoted fan. I figured it out. This is why he has a bartender. When you have that much booze coming in every single day, you need someone to help organize that.
No, but I've got a suspicion he had the bartender before the booze started coming. This just gives the bartender more to do.
Yeah, that's true. He then tells Laura her jealousy must have driven her over the brink, adding that she's an animal. And I do like the way they cut this back and forth, because then we cut to Heather telling Steele he's an animal, right? She tells Steele, and this is another bit here. She says that Derek invited her to his dressing room, took off his clothing in front of her, and said, shall we get to it? Her response is very indicative of the casting couch, rampant sexual assault culture that existed in Hollywood. She says, being a serious actress and already knowing I had the part, I slapped him in the puss and told him to get out of there. So, I mean...
I've got questions about that serious actress line, but okay.
Sure. But I mean, this is also a callback in some ways to Steele Among the News, where I think it was Hoop Tracy said to Steele that Chrissy had slept with Ed to get the anchorwoman spot, and said, I didn't have any leverage in that department. I'd already slept with him to get the sports assignment. So, which, I mean, it's played off as comedy, but there's that, that reminder that this is what you had to do back then. And still, I mean, probably until they uncovered the whole Weinstein thing, it was even pretty modern day. So Steele asked her.
I'm gonna guess that it continues.
Yeah, probably.
They just, Harvey Weinstein was a convenient diversion. Okay, we're gonna throw him one.
Yeah.
We keep the rest of ours, and just keep it all quiet. Yeah, so it's probably still going on.
Probably. Steele asks her if she is suggesting he tried to kill her just because she wouldn't sleep with him. She insists she is the real star and he is just a washed-up old has-been with stinky breath. She points out that if he wanted to feed her this time, and suggests it was because it was poison. Switch back to Derek and Laura, who's asking the same question. Derek tells her a script is just a sodden piece of clay, waiting for the actor to imprint on it. Then he adds that silken-haired sow had been shoving that slop into his mouth for a year, always managing to miss and jab him in the upper lip with the fork.
Yeah.
I love the insults that he has for Heather. Like, it's just,
well, I mean, he's
creative.
He's got decades and decades of experience in
That's true.
Not only giving insults, but listening and learning other people's insults. So, I mean,
he was a Shakespearean actor. He's got all the good Shakespeare insults. There was quite a few there. And he even goes on to say that there was a time when parts weren't exactly coming his way, but he says that Laura points out that he could be jealous of Heather, and he insists that he's got nothing to be jealous of. And this is an interesting thing they cut out of the script, and it kind of irritates me a little bit, because he says he was offered the part of King Lear at Stratford. And that's in the script, right?
Right.
Sorry, that's in the actual episode that aired. But if you look at the script, he says he was offered the part of King Lear at Stratford, and then there's a pause, and he says the one in London, which I found really funny because it's obviously a reference to the fact that here in Ontario, we have the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, which is one of the most well-known Shakespearean theater festivals in North America. And so obviously they had to make that distinction. They cut out the Canadian bit, and I'm a little annoyed.
Well, it wasn't even, there isn't a direct reference to Canada, though. It's a
but we know what he's
obtuse reference.
I know what he's talking
well,
about.
Canadians would get it, but nobody else would.
Oh, so what? We're not important. I see what this is.
It's just the rest of us are ignorant. No, the rest of us are just ignorant. Ignorant Americans.
Back to Steele and Heather. He says that he won't be eating any more of Chef Gaston's, and she says the same thing, that we get this back and forth shot of Steele and Laura both saying that there isn't enough evidence on either side. Both suggest that the other might do the commercials himself if they refuse. So here's my question. Are Steele and Laura using them as bait? Because it kind of feels like they are.
Well, and
I mean, I don't blame them. They're irritating.
Well, of course, Doris is the one who hired them to make sure that the commercials come off. And so you could, I guess, make an argument that they're just simply trying to fulfill their responsibility to Doris by making sure the stars show up. But, they've got lawyers to do that too. So, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, bait.
Because technically, that was their assignment. But now there's a potential murder, and they still seem intent on getting them to that set where somebody was almost killed. Interesting. Okay.
Well, somebody was a parrot.
Well, okay. Rights for parrots. So that's an ethics question mark moment.
Yes.
Both actors reconsider and decide the show must go on, Heather claiming that hundreds of people rely on us for their livelihoods, and Derek saying that people depend on him to entertain them. Laura calls him a real trooper and shakes his hand, but Heather insists she will be sleeping with one eye open and that Derek Vivian will kill her over her dead body, which Steele visually finds quite intriguing. And yes. I'm sorry, but there has to be 2 Buffy references here, because this reminds me of an episode where Cordelia finds Giles after he's been knocked out. And she says, I came here to find you to ask Buffy to stop all the craziness and found you all unconscious. How many times have you been knocked out anyway? One of these days you're going to wake up in a coma. So, yeah, that was
logic. Yeah.
Yeah. So Steele leaves, and she runs to the phone dialing a number and saying that they are going to have to move the timetable up, adding that she doesn't care how risky it is and just to do it. Which I don't know if there's ever an explanation for that.
She seems like a different person here.
Yeah.
It's her talking to Stan, yeah. And we find out later, I think, why. It's the commercial.
Right.
But for the skin cream or whatever it is. But
shampoo.
Yeah, here she's shampoo. Thank you. But here she really sounds like a different person.
She does.
Almost as if her dumb airhead blonde persona is just an act.
Yeah, and it feels like this was done obviously as a red herring, but it doesn't.
Right.
I know technically it's supposed to connect to Stan in the commercial, but I don't know. This one feels tacked on, I guess. And it doesn't really work for me that well. So then we get.
It's too obvious to be a good red herring.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene change. They're in the office. Laura's on the phone with the police about her car, and it sounds like she isn't getting very far. When she tells them that she had some evidence in the trunk, there's a pause. And then she says it was a dead parrot and some beef bourguignon. And obviously, and then she pauses and looks at Steele. He's laughing, which I like that. That is funny. Steele, meanwhile, is eating some fast food. And here's again where I ask, are they really eating? Because it feels like they're really eating. Like they're shoving food into their mouths. We see them swallow, right?
It seems like it, yeah.
So I guess they're doing the thing that you said that only 2 types of actors do, which it definitely looks like they're. This is weird. Okay, this is, I think, part of what bugs me. The purpose of them shoveling the fast food down in the 2 scenes that we see it is sort of called back to later on when Steele talks to Derek and says that they haven't had any time for themselves and they haven't had a romantic dinner, and it's kind of meant to show that they're in this rut. But we don't get any other evidence, aside from the fact that they just aren't in any scenes together, There's nothing to indicate that their relationship is in any way in trouble or quote unquote boring. And this is coming on the heels of Love Among the Steele. So this feels like a visual shortcut that doesn't really pan out for me. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I know what you're saying. The only explanation I can come up with is actually twofold. One being that, remember, this is episodic television, and what happened last week has no bearing necessarily on what happens this week. True. Because who's going to remember? And also, in episodic television, they were more likely to, okay, this script needs a little more work. Yeah, we were going to do it next week, but we'll skip it. Go back, do some more work. We've got this other script that's really pretty much almost ready to go. We'll do this one instead. So, they can shuffle the order of those things. And also the networks shuffle the order. I didn't look at the production codes on any of these second season episodes. So I don't know how much out of order they are, but networks were really notorious for Firefly. Prime example. God. Prime example of,
how could you?
We know that they should go in this order because that's how they were written and how the characters progress. Star Trek, the original series, same thing. They were doing the star dates, and it was supposed to just increment them a little bit every time. But the networks kept showing them out of order. So, I mean, you just, at some point, you just give up.
Yeah, no.
And don't even try.
I get that. I guess just in the interior of the episode, even putting aside Love Among the Steele preceding this one, there's nothing that we get aside from them eating food while they're working to indicate that their relationship is in some sort of rut. And it does not come across to me. It feels weird and out of place. We've never seen them eat fast food before, really. And like even with noodles out of a packet, he puts it in a tureen. Like, it just.
Yeah. Well, we said that they're in a rut, so therefore they're in a rut. Problem solved.
Yeah. I guess it's the telling instead of showing. I don't see it shown. I just see them eating, which any couple has eaten fast food together before. Like, that's not, to me, strange enough to be visually
warrant comment.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's what bugs me. That, and like, they don't seem to eat very slowly. They're just kind of like wolfing it down. And I'm like, wow, okay, you're hungry. I get it. Jeez.
You haven't eaten all day. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So she hangs up and she says, according to her sergeant, her car is probably a Tijuana taxi by now. And as she's doing that, Steele is rifling through Mildred's Rolodex. And this I wanted to highlight because the script has a little bit more on this, and I find it pretty funny. He's trying to find where she's put the numbers for rental car. And he says he's looked under A for automobile, C for cars, R for rental. And so far, all I've come up with is a recipe for ratatouille, right? And then Mildred comes in. She's got this delivery boy with all the booze baskets. He sets them down. And she says, I figured out this is in the script. I figured out who's been sending Derek Vivian all those booze baskets. It cost us a little, but it's actually pretty good wine. And she tells him to set it down. And then she says, don't worry, it's completely tax deductible since it was obtained in conjunction with a case. And then she frowns, although I'm not quite sure how to list it. They don't have a column for bribes. And then Mildred says something like, don't worry about the taxes. Who's been sending Derek the baskets? And then she tells them that they've all been charged the same account. Doris Wagenbacher. Steele says, call her Doris, it's faster. This is all in the episode, this part here, because Laura says, why would anyone send booze to an incipient alcoholic? And he points out that maybe whoever's behind this is trying to sabotage the commercials, not the actors, which again, this is all in the episode. And Steele says, you're saying that Doris wanted to get Derek so drunk or hungover he'd miss the filming. And when that failed, perhaps they went out so far as to poison the food. Laura points out that these commercials are the golden goose, so why try to kill it? And Steele, I love this bit. He says, the set is rife with hostility. And poor Mildred, her face just falls. She says, I don't believe it. Why, Derek Vivian and Heather St. Germain are the Nelson and Eddie and Jeanette MacDonald of frozen food. Are you trying to tell me they don't like one another? That part's in the script, not in the episode, and I don't know who these people are. Do you? Nelson, Eddie, and Jeanette MacDonald?
I didn't look them up because I didn't look at this part of the script.
Okay.
Nelson, Eddie, and Jeanette MacDonald were a couple that were famous in movies and musicals. And this would have been like the 1930s, maybe. I don't remember exactly when. But yeah, they were old Hollywood singers and actors, very popular on-screen couple. I have no idea what their relationship was off-screen, whether they were married or whether they were mortal enemies and tried to poison each other with Chef Gaston's beef bourguignon. But yeah, they're just old Hollywood actors and singers.
Okay. And then, yeah, she says, are you telling me they don't like one another? And Steele says, let's just say I wouldn't put them in the same room with a loaded gun. Poor Mildred. Television is so disillusioning. Just when you find something to believe in, she sags down onto the couch.
A commercial. That's what she believes in.
Right? Like, I guess. Well, I mean, people did really get into the Taster's Choice coffee commercials. So I guess that was a thing. So Laura suggests that both Heather and Derek might be telling the truth. Neither of them is trying to kill each other. And then again, this is in the script. Mildred says, I'm depressed. Let's say we christen the wine. Since this is definitely a working dinner, it's totally deductible. Steele says, not for me, thanks. We have an early call on set. And then Laura, I like this line. She says, after spending an afternoon with Derek, Vivi and I have an overwhelming urge to attend an AA meeting. They go to leave, and this is where we go back to the script or what's in the episode. He says, say, Mildred, where do you keep the numbers for car rental agencies? Under T. Ah, for transportation. Tax deduction. So that's why I think they had all the other stuff in there about stuff being tax deductible because they wanted to make that line land. But I think I don't know. I think it kind of works without all of the references to this being deductible or that being deductible, because I think it just kind of speaks to Mildred as a person, like her personality. He's looked through all the letters and he can't figure it out, and then she's like, it's in there for tax deductible.
Which is, I mean,
of course.
It's one of those things where, it's just because you're organizing it this way and it makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense to anybody else in the real world. And I mean, who looks for car rentals under tax deduction? I mean, you could put tons of stuff under tax deduction.
But that doesn't help you find Mildred, it. I think is what this says, that is really, really Mildred. I love it.
Yes, it is definitely Mildred.
We get a scene change. Derek and Heather are climbing a really fake mountain for one of their commercials. Terrible. It's they reach really the top of the world where no man or woman has ever trod. And of course, the best part of it is that they have Chef Gaston's new veal fricassee to celebrate. Oh no. Like, of all the foods that you could choose to make into a frozen dinner, veal no. That's an insult to food. That's
Hey,
I have no words.
It's Chef Gaston. What do you think he's just going to do? Lamb?
What's next? Chef Gaston's liver and onions? Like, it just... Sorry. So they turn to, quote, gaze at each other. And then she kind of whisper yells that he is standing in her key light. She's very, articulate. Which is hilarious, because they're supposed to be gazing lovingly at each other, and I really hope that the camera's not close up on them, because they
it would definitely be seen. Yeah.
He points out she hasn't brushed her teeth, and she says it's because he stood in her key light yesterday. They call each other a few more names before kissing, and the director yelling cut. So and I have heard of actors and actresses who do that very sort of thing, where they they'll eat something that's heavy in garlic or onions just before a romantic scene, just because, whatever reason. They just do. You're gonna hate me, but there's another Buffy
Number 3, everybody, if you're doing the drinking game for Buffy,
it's the hat
this
trick.
Is your third drink.
Sorry, but apparently Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Boreanaz, when their characters kissed for the first time, both of them were quite nervous about the scene, so both of them made a point to eat the most garlic heavy foods that they could just to take some of the pressure off. So they did it intentionally, but yeah. So when you said that, it reminded me of that. Anyway, sorry, moving on. Laura approaches Doris Wagenbacher, and she congratulates her for managing to get them to the set right before asking if the food was poisoned. Laura sort of replies evasively, but also wonders why they would bite the hand that feeds them by trying to kill each other. And then Doris replies that obviously Laura doesn't know actors and calls them self-destructive children. I wonder if the writers hated Stephanie and Pierce. At this point, it kind of feels like they do.
Well, it may not have been them personally. It may have been other actors that they had in mind when they were writing some of these lines.
Yeah. So Laura then begins to grill Doris with regards to the booze basket. She accuses her of wanting the commercial shut down, points out that that the gift baskets were charged to her account. Doris gets defensive, saying that giving alcohol to Derek would be like force-feeding chocolate to a diabetic. She tells Laura to not give it another thought, but Laura's not going to be deterred so easily. She says that she's been giving it a great deal of thought, points out that she hired them to make sure the commercials were filmed according to schedule, and Mr. Steele never goes against a client's wishes. So this rattles Doris. She's clearly uncomfortable with having been found out for this.
Well, of course.
Because she screwed up. She was supposed to fail. Like, basically Laura and Steele were supposed to fail in what they were hired to do. And obviously she never expected an attempted murder to complicate things, but it's been discovered. So she walks away, and meanwhile, Steele is watching Mady as she gets things ready until he finally snaps his fingers and declares he's figured out where he's seen her before. She is obviously supposed to be a stand-in for Shirley Temple. Because,
I would say so.
Yeah. Mop Top, right? Child actress in a film called Mop Top, which he attributes to Allied artists in 1963. She replies with, "I was 10 years old, you can't hold me responsible." But Steele insists that he loved her films, including Little Miss Mischief and Flossie of the Yukon.
Yeah.
They're shouting out to Canada here, at least. We got one.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that one of the writers is Canadian.
I don't know, but I'm going to have to Google it afterwards because, you don't write something alluding to the Stratford Shakespeare Festival and then have a title. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I pulled a U. And then have Flossie of the Yukon only to not have some connection to Canada.
Yeah.
And then she seems surprised by this because she says, that was pulled after a week. And he says, I hurried. Which is kind of cute.
Yeah.
He asks her why she quit acting. She says she didn't, and that acting quit her. So it seems like this episode is pointing out a lot of the old tropes and stereotypes of Hollywood. You've got these commercials that are sort of storytelling, episodic soap operas of their own. You've got the trope of actors being self-destructive children. You've got the trope of the casting couch. You've got this child acting trope where, and I mean, I say tropes, but these are actually things that occurred, right? Yeah. You've got all kinds of child actors who were huge until, Macaulay Culkin is one perfect example. He was so cute. He was the perfect child actor. He was in so many movies. And I know there was stuff behind the scenes too. His dad was quite abusive and controlling, and he didn't want to do it anymore. But at the same time, Hollywood stops wanting you after you get less cute, right? And that contributes to a lot of issues for a lot of actors. So it's something that's happened over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and it happens on the other end of it as well, and we've talked about it before where especially female actors, they get over a certain age and it's like, no, we might find a grandmother role for you somewhere, but no and we talked about how Angela Lansbury with Murder, She Wrote kind of broke that down, but still she's still more the exception there than the rule.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can point to things like Golden Girls and such as that, but as a rule, you're over a certain age, you get relegated to these secondary, mother-in-law, grandmother roles.
Yeah, and when you look at action stars, you've got Arnie, you've got Sylvester Stallone, you've got Van Damme, you've got Dolph Lundgren. They're all still doing these heavy action-filled parts, but you don't get the same for female action heroes, and they're few and far between to begin with. But so yeah, I think you're right. Like, and the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Sarah Connor, because they gave that, we had that Judgment Day Terminator movie that just came out recently, and she was jacked. Like, she's in her 60s and she worked out. But that was an exception. Again, not the rule. We don't usually see that. So you're right. And this is sad.
But even outside of the action hero genre, I mean, just in other areas.
Yeah, for sure.
You just don't. You just don't see it.
What do you think of the actress who's playing Mady?
I like her.
Yeah. Like, I think
I like her. She
brings a real sadness to her.
She's a real person.
Yes.
We've got Derek, who's obviously
a caricature.
Fake. We've got Heather, who's obviously fake. We've got Doris, who is obviously she's not fake, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, she's real.
She's too realistic.
Person, yeah.
Yes, but Mady, I like Mady. I mean, she's not fake.
Yeah.
In any sense of the word, and I mean that both in terms of the personality, in the character, the design of the character, her appearance, everything about her is real. It's genuine. I like her.
Yeah, me too. And I just, like I said, she brings this sadness is the only way I can think to put it, but it's very, like, she understands how the world works. She understands that her awkward age lasted 12 years and cost her her career. She understands that, and she sort of accepted it. It's this weary acceptance of, this is where I am. This is my part that I play in real life, and I don't really have anywhere to go from here. And it's just, you get all of this from this one exchange between her and Mr. Steele, and it's really good. Like, it's just really good. It's genuine.
And it's well written because
it's
of that.
It's very well written. Yes.
Or it's that way because it's so well written. So
I think maybe this is one of those things where I tend to like a sympathetic villain. And this is another maybe callback to Steele in the News, where we've got a character who we sympathize with on more than one level that is doing terrible things, but maybe doing them not necessarily premeditated, because we find out later on that there's a mental illness at play for her. And obviously with Elliot, there was also, it feels like we talked about this in the episode, where he wasn't necessarily planning to kill these people. It was just fits of rage where he just couldn't,
spiraling out of control.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like that's where they're going with that here as well. And it works for me. Like, it's one of those few examples where I'm looking at the villain going, oh, you poor thing. Like, I want to hug you and but also I don't want you killing people. So,
clearly she's got some issues, but if she can work out those issues and, set them aside, she's a nice person.
Yeah, exactly. And
she's not obnoxious like Heather or arrogant like Derek.
Yeah.
And being that Hollywood walked away from her, she could be a bitter person.
Yes.
And maybe that's part of her mental illness is some sort of bitterness in her mind and attitude. Yeah. But when she's not in that mode, she has no bitterness, and it's just like you say, quiet resignation and acceptance.
Yeah. And it's done really well. So then she tells Steele that, because he asked her if she ever wanted to get back into acting. She says she doesn't. She says that she left acting, went to Chicago, met Stan, who was a photographer for a food layout magazine, became his assistant, and he ended up wanting to come back there to shoot these commercials, and so she went with him. Steele asks if she's content to spend her days waxing zucchini, and she replies that zucchini doesn't complain about its makeup, which I do like.
That's a great line.
She then says that Stan met Heather.
And she delivers it so well. She's got that little look on her face. It's kind of I don't even know how to describe the look. But,
snarky. It's kind of snarky.
Well, but it's not cruelly snarky.
It's just sort of like, well,
kind of almost self-deprecating snarky.
Yeah. And then, of course, Stan starts yelling at her to get the lead out, which he's a jerk. I don't like him at all.
He is.
He's just a creep.
He just doesn't treat her well.
No.
Which may actually be part of her problem.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Because he treats Heather very well.
Mm-hmm.
And Heather is Hollywood Heather is Hollywood. Heather is everything that Mady never got to be, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Steele seems surprised that he's her husband, probably because he treats her so badly. Yeah. She says that's what it says on the marriage license and kind of hurries off. Yeah, Stan is a jerk. He's putting the food together. Heather points out to Doris that she isn't sure she can trust these guys. And Laura says that the Remington Steele agency aren't the Borgias, but offers to taste the food anyway. Why would you do that?
The same reason that Steele offered to inspect that car back in
Tom.
Yeah. So I guess you get into the part, you just do it.
That's dumb. It's very dumb.
Well, I didn't say it was smart.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. And then Stan refuses to let her go anywhere near it, claiming it will destroy the statement. He's trying to... what statement?
What, are these mashed potatoes? Is he Richard Dreyfuss?
Yeah, I mean... Well, it's supposed to be veal fricassee from what we... God, I don't know what statement veal fricassee makes other than moo.
I don't either.
But, yeah, no. Then Heather declares she won't eat the food, and Derek says, for once I agree with the old trollop. And they walk away. I love it. I love the insults. They're great. All of a sudden, they hear a scream coming from Heather's dressing room. I gotta say, she's a good screamer. Like, you watch horror movies and things like that, you gotta have a good screamer. You gotta have someone who can deliver a quality scream.
What was that?
I'm not wrong.
John Travolta movie. It was a John Travolta movie where he was playing a sound man and he recorded somebody screaming.
Oh,
and he used it. And it was his girlfriend because she was getting killed. And he used the scream in a movie. I can't. Anyway.
I know what you're talking about. I can't.
Rabbit hole.
All right. So catch that carrot or something.
Stop that carrot.
Stop that carrot.
Yeah.
So they run towards it. They see Heather on the floor. Her costumes are all torn to shreds. And she's convinced Derek is behind it. So she attacks him. And they literally have to pull her off him. Doris declares it's a wrap. So we've got day 2 of shooting is done. Laura gives Derek a ride home in the limo. As they get out, she sees her car, again, coming straight for her and Derek, not being driven by anybody. I don't know if this is like Herbie the Love Bug or something, but these cars, they got a mind of their own in these back-to-back episodes. Really? They jump out of the way. It hits the back of the limo. Laura, is Fred in the limo? Like, is he there?
No, this isn't this is Derek's car, I believe.
Oh, so okay, yes, sorry. So he gave her a ride. Well, I'm hoping she drove, though.
Well, it's been a while since he's been home, so he's probably sober by now.
They jump out of the way and hits the back of the limo, Derek's car. Laura tells Derek that she has good news and bad news. The good news is he's no longer a suspect. The bad news is he's the intended victim. This is not a good episode for Laura's car.
Her car's been having some issues lately.
Holy cow, yes. I think her car probably sustains the most damage throughout the series. It's constantly blown up. Her insurance must be through the roof. Holy cow.
Yeah. And at some point, you're just not going to be able to fix it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That actually makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Due South, but in the show, Ray, the character of Ray, he drives a 1973 Buick Riviera, and he's like obsessed with this car. And there's an episode where they're forced to blow it up, and then the next episode, he's going on and on about how hard it was to find a Buick of that year and that whatever. And then it drives past them and he races after it. And then boom, he's got it back again. And like all this stuff seems to happen to this poor Buick. But yeah, so they come into Derek's apartment. Laura is rather stunned. Derek, on the other hand, is invigorated by his brush with death. She asks him why he didn't jump out of the way. And he admits rather sheepishly that for a moment he felt like he was on a film set and he was waiting for the director to yell, cut.
Yeah.
His brain is done. Like he's just destroyed it with booze.
Yeah.
So at this point, she just sort of stands there, which is kind of weird. Like she stands there not doing or saying anything. And it's clearly for the purpose of showing Derek attempt to whatever he's attempting to do. But it's weird just watching her sort of stand there, not looking at him, not looking at anything. It's an odd visual. He starts like circling her. He tells her that she is a striking woman. This is where she begins to back away as he pays her compliment after compliment, comparing her to past women that he's acted with, theoretically. She tries to ask him questions about whether Doris would want the commercial shut down. He ignores her, eventually grabbing her. She tells him to stop and let go of her, but he replies with, "You proud vixen, your cries will go for naught. I intend to possess you this very evening, and I shall not be denied." Okay. He's distracted.
I like his little capper on that. What's that from?
Yeah, what's that from?
He's doing this, and it's like he's acting a scene again.
Yeah.
And he's convinced that it's a scene from one of his old movies.
And it probably is. He just can't remember which one.
Yeah, he's definitely losing his grip.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. And he's distracted, like I said, as you just said. He questions where the quote came from. Laura uses the opportunity to knock him on his butt. She tells him that she's starting to regret saving his life, and then she asks him what he's trying to prove. That he's still attractive? He is. That he's young? He's not. I like this moment for her, that she's acknowledging to him, yeah, you're still attractive. You're not young anymore, and I'm not into you. Like, I don't know what you're trying to prove. Derek, in a rare moment of honesty, admits that he is not a lot of things. He tells her he was lying about King Lear, and that being a semi-serious actor means that he is supposed to despise the commercials while looking for better things. He admits, though, that he's no longer mentally equipped to play Lear or anything else lasting longer than 30 seconds. He says his booze-soaked brain cannot remember the lines, and that he even has trouble remembering Chef Gaston's instant gourmet dinner. Oof.
Yeah.
Like, this is a good moment.
That is obviously it's a good point for the plot, because it combined with the fact that the car was aiming for him kind of eliminates him as the culprit. But yeah, I mean, it's got a realism to it.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
There's a lot of actors who you read about who are in this exact same situation. They won't give up acting because it's all they know, but they can't remember it anymore.
And they consistently choose things that are just paychecks because they can't. They don't have the currency to pick and choose anymore. And that might be all they can handle anyway.
Yeah.
So it is sad, and it's kind of, I think it almost absolves him for, and here's the thing, like, there's nothing wrong with him attempting to initiate a romantic liaison with her. Obviously, if you're interested in somebody, you let them know. But then the way he does it, I mean, obviously the way he did it with Heather, just opening his robe, like, well, shall we get on with it? Grabbing her when she says, "Get off me," and then continuing to say, "Your cries will go for naught." Like, that's the part that's not acceptable. But in his mind, that's how it's done. It's what.
Well, it could also just be that the effects of the alcohol on his mind. Yeah. He's I don't want to say kind of insane, but I mean, there's a kind of insanity to it.
Yeah.
That he can't really, he doesn't comprehend what he's doing.
Or sometimes maybe he doesn't even realize where he is, like whether he's in his, because he says, "What's that from?" And so it could even be that he seems to be, it's somewhat like Veronica Kirk, flashing back and forth from old parts and old roles, right? So if he's that drunk, he could just be going from rote memory. This is what I do. This is I hit on this woman, I grab her. So
yeah, he sees something and it triggers something in his mind, and suddenly he's not there, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And he's no longer aware of where he's at. He's now back on a set filming a role, and he's in his mind, he's literally back in time.
Yeah, he almost didn't jump out of the way because he thought he was on a film set. A car was coming at him. So
right.
this could definitely be one of those moments. And I think maybe that's why Laura seems to have empathy for him, because he sits up, he says, I'm not sure what frightens me more, dying or losing those commercials. And that's sad when you think about it. That's really, and no insult to commercials, but just the fact that this is somebody who loved his job so much, clearly, or he wouldn't constantly be replaying his glory days, to sit up and say, I don't know what's worse, dying or losing like this little connection that I have to acting. And Laura looks like she's about to cry. Like, she looks moved by this and says, I know, Derek, I know. And it's quite a sweet moment almost, which is odd considering how he hit on her. But like, she seems to almost pity him, but not in a condescending way. Like, she's seeing this guy that's lost everything and she feels for him. Right. So I don't know. I like that moment. We switch over to this fancy hotel. Steele is in the hotel. He's walking through. He sees Doris Wagenbacher through a plant. A waiter approaches and disapprovingly tells Steele that they don't often get gentlemen for afternoon tea. He tells him that he's supposed to meet with Doris Wagenbacher, but she's with someone else, and it's bad manners to intrude. And then he sort of shrewdly asks the waiter who her companion is, to which the waiter tells him it's Mother Trust of Mother Trust Frozen Foods, pointing out that her picture is on every package. So here we go. Here we have the smoking gun, so to speak, that they were looking for when it comes to Doris. Armed with that knowledge, he makes his way over through a sea of blue-haired little old ladies, where he barges in on them. Doris jumps up in surprise and shock, saying, how dare you? But he sort of cuts her off and says that he needs no introduction, that Mother Trust needs no introduction, adding that he loves her pot pies. He manages to get her to sit down and saying he's just come from court. Introduces himself to Mother Trust as Sterling Gillette of Drummond, Brady, and Sterling Gillette. Okay. That's got to be one of his better fake aliases. It's another Nigel Lentil Woolsey.
But again, it's kind of tied into Remington Steele, because Remington is a razor blade, Gillette is a razor blade, Steele is a metal, Sterling is a type of...
Yeah. It's true.
Hey, when you got a good joke, keep running it.
It's good. Yeah. Mother Trust asks, isn't it a bit early to bring in a lawyer? And Doris starts to claim Steele isn't a lawyer, but he cuts her off again, saying that he's not here in an official capacity. Mother Trust sips her martini and says if Doris wants her lawyer there, it's no skin off her nose. And I like her. She's funny. Like, they've got this. She's very rough and abrasive, which obviously is meant to counter whatever wholesome image is probably on the Mother Trust packaging.
Right.
So it's good. It's like they wrap up a whole story in just a few exchanges with this woman, which is neat. Yeah, so she begins to say that as soon as those commercials bite the dust, and Doris cuts her off again, trying to warn her. Steele, as Sterling, urges her to continue, and she points out that the Chef Gaston commercials have cut into her profits. She says that when Doris shuts down the commercials, she will set up her own advertising agency, and Doris obviously will get to be in charge of that. And Steele finishes by saying, with Mother Trust as her first client. So yeah, they're going to make a ton of money all around. Steele points out that Doris is contracted to Chef Gaston and they could sue. And Mother Trust counters by saying that contracts were made to be broken, and when they're done, they won't have a dime to call legal aid. And she laughs and gulps her martini.
Steele, want another one?
Yeah, five's
my limit.
This woman knows her stuff. Like, I get a kick out of this lady. So yeah, she gets up and tells Doris when she's ready to give her a jingle. And Steele looks over at Doris and says, so, your own advertising agency. Doris insists that she's earned it, saying she's worked 25 years to get an offer like that. And he asks if she's ready to kill for it. Doris says that she is now. Need to leave who? But then she says, I wouldn't need to leave the table to do it. What does she mean by that?
He's the one she's going to kill.
Okay, fair. I thought it was a reference to... Okay, gotcha. Missed that. So Laura, then the next scene, we've got Laura showing up at the set in the middle of the night. That seems odd. Like, why is she's just able to walk in, obviously.
Yeah, no. Reality check. Yeah, you just don't walk in.
that seems, yeah. She walks in on Heather practicing a commercial for ecstasy shampoo. She's on a prop bed in a very revealing negligee, and when she finishes the commercial, she pulls Stan down onto the bed. They start kissing. So, not a shock. He's messing around on Matey, which makes him even more of a jerk face. Laura does a slow clap, telling her sarcastically that she would buy the shampoo. And Heather wants to know what she's doing there.
Go out and get to family size.
Yeah, that's a good line. Yeah. Laura tells her she wanted to get another look at her costumes because she found them disturbing. So here's one of the points where I'm wondering, like, why wouldn't Steele be there with her for backup if she's going to the set in the middle of the night? This is one of those moments where I'm like, logistically, he should be there with her. There's no reason to have them be apart. Maybe that's what bugs me about this episode, because To Stop a Steal, there was a reason they were apart. Both were asked separately not to tell the other what was going on. Right. Whereas there's no reason for this here. They're just not communicating.
Yeah,
and it's weird.
And it's obvious that there's a time jump between the last sequence we saw, which was at tea time, which is what, about 3:30, 4 o'clock?
I would assume. Oh, okay, well, I was thinking noon.
I don't know.
But...
I don't know.
Oh, well, okay, so wait. If we're talking tea as in dinner time. If we're talking tea as an actual tea, probably like noon. High tea is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was like late mid afternoon, but okay, so let's say noon. Now it's dark. So why wouldn't did the two of them not get together and talk at all in the whole whatever it is 6, 8 hours, 9 hours since the
why didn't she come with him to tea?
Yeah,
like it doesn't seem a reason for them to not be, and not even that I'm looking for romantic scenes with them, but just
working together as a team.
Them. Yeah, working as a team. Like it just feels like they went out of their way to make sure that they barely interact in this script, and I think that's what.
And they could have addressed it in a different way just by simply having the tea situation, that meeting take place at a late dinner, so that Steele was there doing one thing and she's off by herself doing something else, and then you would have you might look at it and say, well, you guys should have planned that better, but then at least you had something that was somewhat rational.
Yeah, because the divide and conquer where they each speak to Derek and Vivian, or Derek, sorry, Derek and Heather.
Yeah,
that works. That works. Yeah. We can see that strategy, but with this, it just feels like there's no reason for him not to be there. They're both working this together. So
yeah,
it's odd. So she points out that what disturbed her about the costumes was that the cuts were all along the seams, and a good wardrobe woman could put them back together in no time. She wondered why Heather would want to torpedo the commercials, and obviously now she knows. Stan says he was just helping her out, and that she has a shot at being the next ecstasy shampoo girl. Laura replies that her contract is exclusive to Chef Gaston, and Heather insists that it was Derek who tried to kill her. Laura reminds her that she always feeds Derek and had no way of knowing that he would change his mind. She then turns to Stan and asks if he plans to direct the shampoo commercials. Stan insists the written word is sacred and he just does what he's told, but Heather vindictively points out that Stan has a feature lined up with major Hollywood stars, and Laura says that sounds like something worth killing for, which Stan stupidly agrees to. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Like, he's like, yeah, you bet. Oh, wait, but no, I didn't. I did totally. It was like, okay, you're not that bright. He's in that category of like semi-average looking white guys who just aren't all that smart. There seem to be quite a bit of them on this show. He's one of them. So she leaves. She runs into Matey, who claims to have been getting coffee. She says she's there to surprise Stan and Heather. And Laura tries to protect her. It's sweet. She says it wouldn't be a good idea. And then again, Matey, my heart goes out to her throughout this entire episode. She says she knows all about Heather and Stan, and then says rather sadly it's all part of the business, like lunch at the Polo Lounge or taking out an ad in Variety. Ouch.
Yeah.
This poor woman deserves better. She deserves better than Stan. She deserves better than what Hollywood did to her. She deserves real help. Like, she just deserves better. Justice for Matey. If there were a hashtag behind it, that's where it would be. Oh, you know what I just thought of? Derek says that he's not cut out to do anything that's not longer than 30 seconds. TikTok. Derek would be great on TikTok. There's his new career. He could... Anyway, sorry. So we got a scene change. This is... When was the last time we saw them together? Now they're back at the office together. Again, shoveling food into their mouths in a way that's almost aggressive. Steele seems to be more interested in the food that they've ordered. Laura is trying to give him a rundown of the suspects. He says he's glad that they can cross Derek off their list of suspects. He claims he actually likes the man, enjoys rehashing all the scenes from his movies, none of which he can remember. And he calls Derek endearing. He keeps heaping so much praise on Derek at this point. And of course, Laura is evasive, choosing this moment instead to sort of put more food in her mouth. He starts extolling Derek's virtues to the point where you start to wonder if he's the one that wants to date Derek. It gets to the point where I'm just like, okay, Steele, do you have a thing for Derek? Because
I mean, he's fanboying out. I mean, let's face it, and that knows no genders, and it's not necessarily a sexual thing. It's just, this is the person I've idolized, or I wanted to be like all my life, or he's playing a role that I so identify with, and I'm finally getting this chance to spend time with him, and I get to spend time with him. I mean, I can understand it, I guess.
I don't know. I don't know if fanboys describe the actor that they're interested in, whatever you want to call it, with quite this many adjectives. Because he says, what else? He says he's caring yet wistful, with great panache, and he just keeps going, and you're like,
I think though he's confusing the characters that he's played with the actual actor. I think, at least to some degree. People do that. They confuse the character with the actor. They think that what they see on the screen is that person. And I think there's maybe a little bit of that here too.
Oh, no, I'm not saying he really is into Derek, but it kind of comes across that way, especially because I know somebody who loves Star Trek Picard. Okay. And goes on and on. This is a straight man, straight as it gets. And every time he talks about, have you ever seen Picard, the show?
No, I have not. No.
So there's a character named Cristobal, who is the captain of one of the ships, played by an actor named Santiago Cabrera. And he goes on all the time about, he's like, if I could sleep with any man, it would be Santiago Cabrera. He's totally straight, but he's really into him. And that's how this comes across, that he's just really into Derek. And I get that they're doing this to emphasize how uncomfortable Laura is. Because every time he mentions Derek, she
shovels more food in her mouth.
Which he eventually points out and says, what's going on, right?
I'm not hungry.
Yeah. See, this is another bit that doesn't... I wonder why they did this, because she says, oh, it's nothing. And then eventually she says, oh, hell, he made a pass at me. Why? Why is she telling him this? There have been tons of other times in this show, both before this episode and after, where characters have made a pass at Laura, and she's never felt the need to go running to him and say, so-and-so hit on me.
Well,
it's weird.
I think it's because of what you just were talking about a few minutes ago, is because Steele idolizes this guy so much, and other people who have made passes at her, Steele didn't have that same perception of them, that same attitude toward them. And so she might have said something to him anyway, if it had been any other situation, like some other person made a pass at her. Yeah, he made a pass at me. It's no big deal. So she might have wanted to say something like she would if it had been somebody else making a pass at her. But because Steele idolizes him so much, it's making her uncomfortable. She doesn't know how to say it, but it's building up in her. And so she just finally blurts it out. Your idol has feet of clay.
Yeah, I guess it just the more this goes on, it feels more like she wants him to know, and I don't know why, because it just feels like she says that it was nothing she couldn't handle, and then she says, actually, I felt sorry for him. He was so transparent in his attempt and so childlike in his guilt, right? And maybe it's because of Steele's reaction. Again, we don't normally see him. He's seen, for example, people hit on her too, and like every time he's either reacted with like, and I get that they weren't officially in a relationship at this point, but with Giovanni, he just got jealous and kind of petty.
Yeah.
And with Murphy, he at first he was upset, like he was genuinely upset, and then he kind of manipulated it to his advantage, right? So this it looks like he feels almost threatened by it, because he pauses and he's like, what kind of pass? Like he's all upset. And then she says, well, what sort are there? And then he says, verbal, physical. She says, both. How physical? A few kisses, which I don't recall there being a few. I recall there being one. So that was an odd.
I don't think he's necessarily feeling threatened by it. I think he is maybe feeling a bit betrayed, because in his mind, he and Laura have something going on, and he views Derek as maybe a friend. Granted, they haven't known each other that long, but I mean, people do, oh, this is my new best friend. I've only known him 5 minutes, but he's my new best friend. And he just may feel like Derek should have realized that, hey, she and I have got this thing going. So,
but again,
how could you do that?
No indication of that ever in this episode, which Derek points out later, right?
Right.
But I don't know. It just because she keeps telling him this is water they shouldn't wade into, and Steele says, "Well, if you didn't want me to take an interest, you shouldn't have brought it up." And she says that he dragged her into this conversation, and he says, "Well, no, I merely inquired." Like this is all, and then of course, how physical did the bloody twit get? And she says a few kisses, which again, I only counted one. And his response, "Did you respond?"
Yeah, and then she tells him the rest of the story. As you said, he asks, "How did you respond?" And I told him to get off. What was he on? The couch? And where were you? Under him? I mean,
which again isn't right. If you look at the scene, she's against the couch. She flips him over onto the couch. But if you look at the original script, it's different. He says, "What was he on?" And then she says, "Me." So
rewrites, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there was, but like, I don't know. She says she handled it. And then when she says she was under him, he replies, "Good God, the more you reassure me, the worse it gets." I don't know what he's upset about. I think that's it, right? It feels like he's upset that she was just there. I can't tell if he's jealous or angry that she ended up in that position. And he gets up and leaves, and then she says, "What are you doing to barbecue an old ham?" She had to have known that if she put it the way she put it, he would react that way.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Like there's a better way to say, like, he hit on me, I dealt with it. And she does say that at the beginning. And then he's asking for like physical specifics. And she could have just said, "Look, it's not important. He tried to kiss me. I said no. That's the end of it. Not a big deal. Let's go back to dinner." Yeah. But like, I don't know. It feels like she drags it out, and then it feels like he reacts in a way that's incongruent to, like, I can't tell who he's mad at. I think that's what bugs me when he says, like, "The more you reassure me, the worse it gets." I don't know. It just feels like, is he angry that Derek did this? Or is he angry that somehow she ended up in a position for Derek to do that? And he doesn't seem to direct any anger at her, but like demanding to know all the visual specifics of it is very strange.
I think it has to do with the fact that he's just upset with Derek at having done it, and that somehow in his mind Derek should have known that they've got something kind of going on the side, and even if they didn't, he should have respected her because they're partners in their business. And I think it just all comes back to him being disappointed in Derek. But
fair enough.
That's just my opinion.
This might have worked better had there been any indication in this episode that they're together or even just in the same room. Like, I don't know if Derek has even seen them physically together. I don't think he has. Not
much. I mean, I think there were a couple of short bits on the set. Yeah.
But other than that, he's...
And even then, there was very little interaction between the two of them. So, I guess I can see what your point is.
Some of this episode just feels like something's missing, I think. And that's where it loses it for me. The rest of it is, when it's on, it's on. And then when that's where I have this love-hate relationship with the episode. There's some really wonderful moments. And then there's moments where I'm left going, well, where's the other side? Because I don't see it. So
too many cooks, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. That we just had too many writers,
too many different visions.
Yeah.
Yes.
But either way, it's not a bad episode. I enjoyed it. So there's a scene change. Derek is sitting at the bar. He's watching his old movies. That's not narcissistic at all.
No.
The phone rings and the bartender answers it, handing it to Derek. He says, "This is an unlisted number. I take it you know who you're calling." And the voice on the other end identifies, which that's an odd way to answer your phone. Some people would have your number, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why have it?
Think so, yeah.
If nobody can call you, why have the number? Anyway, the voice on the other end.
It just could be that's how he approaches phone calls to that number, because he's got one that he gives out for normal people, but this special one he gives out to certain friends, but they know that you're only supposed to call this number under these circumstances at this time, between this o'clock and that o'clock, and it's outside of that. So I don't know.
It's his booze delivery man. That's the number. The voice on the other end identifies herself as Heather, though we don't see her face. We obviously know it's not Heather. He gets angry, immediately asking why she isn't content tormenting him during the working day. She apologizes for accusing him of trying to kill her and says that she knows who the real killer is, but she needs him to help her prove it. We still can't see her face. She begs him to come and help her at the studio. He says, "Of course, my dear child. I'm on my way." He hangs up. We see the voice on the other end was in fact Mady. She's holding a knife and crying as she attacks his clothes, which... Poor Mady.
Yeah.
Ouch.
You just don't treat a redhead like that. I'm sorry.
No, you don't. Yeah. Justice for redheads. Agreed. Scene change. Laura is gathering up files when the phone rings. It's Derek on the other end. He tells her about the phone call he's just had with Heather, and he says that she's waiting down at the studio. Laura tells him to let her handle it, and Derek says that that's why he called, and that he wouldn't trust that little twitch in a room full of nuns. Okay. He says he's drunk but not stupid, which is kind of funny. He gets it.
Yeah.
Laura tells him to tell Steele to meet her at the studio, and Derek says he's not there. She sighs and says he will be. Is this what she wanted? Did she want Steele to go charging out, avenging her virtue? I don't know.
I don't know. It didn't seem wrong to me, any of it. But yeah, now that you're poking holes in it, I'm seeing your finger.
Oof. Ouch. I'm sorry. It just, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like weird that he would go out. And I guess if this all ties back to the stuff we don't see, because if Derek knew that they were a couple and if they were friends with Derek, and I could see that. I could see Steele being angry that somebody he knew hit on some. I get that. It's not here. So maybe that's why it bugs me. So
there's so much that seems to have been left out of the episode that should have been in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get Derek. Steele comes in. He slaps him on the back as he's trying to take a drink. Tells him he has a bone to pick with him. Derek freely admits when he says you kiss Miss Holt. He says, "Oh yes, it's expected of me. I'm the Errol Flynn of the '80s." And Steele says that he embarrassed her and insulted him. And then adds, I thought we were friends. And here's the part where I'm like, how did this line get into the final script? He says, why should a harmless assault destroy a friendship?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Either that was meant to be a pointed comment about rape, or they didn't know how it sounded. It was a very poor
choice of words. Yeah, it was a poor choice of words by the writers.
Because, yikes.
Yeah, assault with a friendly weapon.
So yeah, if that doesn't describe the Boys Club of Hollywood, I don't know what does. Yeah, so yes,
it was a poor choice of words. Yes,
it was definitely not a good choice.
Either that, or it was a deliberate choice of words, and we really have no way of knowing.
It's one or the other. Derek asks why it matters to him, and Steele replies that in addition to being business associates, they are personally involved. This is interesting that he says they are business associates. He doesn't say in addition to being her boss. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe he's finally accepted the fact that he's not.
Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, Derek comments that you would hardly know Steele and Laura were involved. And Steele says that they have hardly had a moment to themselves, especially on the case. I don't know if this is, again, is this a deliberate nod to the audience about the fact that they hardly appear in any scenes together? I don't know.
Well, he does lead into that by saying, well, we can't go around pawing each other in public, can we? I mean, how would it look to our clients?
True.
So he does offer that as something of an explanation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it does seem a little bit schizophrenic to say, well, it's because of this, and then, oh, well, but it's actually because of this. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And then he says there's been no candlelit dinners, no unexpected flowers, unbridled passion. Derek tells him that sort of thing can be fatal to a relationship, and that keeping your nose to the grindstone only gets you a sore nose. And that's kind of where I've got in my notes. This is where I sort of clued in, where I said, is that why they were eating fast food, to show that they aren't being romantic? Because, I don't like the setup. But Derek tells him that it is distressingly easy to fall into a rut and take each other for granted and misplace the magic. This is all really good advice. Until he says, that's how I lost 3 of my wives, the 3 I like the best.
Yeah, and they didn't get divorced. He just lost them somewhere. He was walking down the road and they fell out of his pocket.
They're still waiting for him to come home with the milk. Okay, that's a funny one. The 3 I like the best.
Yeah.
And then he tells her to lavish her with affection and buy her a sensible diamond. And that's when he remembers that she went to the studio and tells Steele, who retorts that the sensible diamond will have to wait. Derek jumps up and he says, do you mind if I join you? And he says, after all, I am the intended victim. And Steele says, okay, and asks if Derek can walk. And he's like, yes, just. That's cute. I like that moment. That's adorable. He's like, I want to watch.
And that's almost the callback to, I can't remember which episode is it, where Laura, where he's going off and doing something, trying to gather some evidence or something. And Laura asks him, do you really know what you're doing? And he says, just
yes.
Barely.
Yeah, just. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
So I don't know if that was intentional or just a coincidence.
I feel like we're saying that a lot in this episode. I don't know if it's intentional, but
anyway.
Laura arrives at the studio. She's looking for Heather. A voice that sounds like Heather asks what she's doing there, and she says Derek called and he isn't coming. And the voice says, that's too bad. That's really too bad. Laura is suspicious, goes to look in Derek's dressing room. She sees all the slashed costumes and comes out and asks Heather to come out so they can talk. Then we see Mady, dressed as Heather, run up behind her with a knife, and she almost stabs her. And this is, again, I think a hint that Mady is somebody just who deeply needs help, as opposed to somebody who is premeditatedly killing people, because she could have killed Laura. And it's almost like she has to remind herself who she is and who she thinks she is and what her purpose is. And Laura is so surprised to see it's her, but obviously even more surprised to see she's dressed as Heather. She calls Mady a wimp, Says she understands why Stan doesn't want anything to do with her when he can have someone like me. And then she asks Laura, wouldn't you want someone like me? And says that Stan says mental illness isn't sexy. She spies on us everywhere we go. She watches us make love. That's sick. Don't you think it's sick? Like, this actress is good. She's really good. Like, it's... I mean, I will say the only thing I don't like about it is the old mentally ill people are violent trope, but even with that, she gives us humanity. She gives us a person, as opposed to, oh yeah, she's crazy. She's trying to kill us because she's nuts, which is usually what you get when you have mental illness as the answer to a murderer, right? And I have it written down in my notes here that this is potentially an example of dissociative identity disorder, which is what they used to call multiple personality disorder. It basically involves, and I've taught students that have this disorder, it essentially involves switching to other identities. And sometimes you feel as if you have two or more people talking or living inside your head. Sometimes you feel like you're possessed by other identities. Each identity may have a unique name, personal history, and features. And sometimes these include different voices, different genders, different mannerisms, even such physical qualities as the need for eyeglasses. There are also differences in how familiar each identity is with the others, because they call them alters. It usually includes bouts of amnesia and sometimes times of confused wandering, and it's usually a result of deep trauma. So this kind of all fits. Like, it sort of all tracks with where we see Mady, right? She's indicated that she has been in mental facilities before. She says she wants to kill her, and Laura, thinking on her feet, says she will help her. Mady says, will they put her back in that house? And Laura says yes. And Mady replies, they say she's cured, but if she's cured, why does she have all those bad dreams all the time? So again, I really like this, what they've done with Mady, because we get this whole picture of somebody who's endured something really awful. It doesn't necessarily have to be something like violently traumatic, but that whole, like, coming up as an actor in your formative years and then summarily being rejected by the thing that you love, like, that's gotta do a number on you. You know?
Yeah.
It works. It really works.
Yeah. Yeah, she does a really, really good job, you know, and yeah, it's hard. It's kind of disheartening that she's the bad guy, because you really want to like her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that bothers me a little too, in the sense that, well, it's the same with Elliot. We like Elliot. We like Mady. We don't want her to be the killer. And they do a good job of making us like her and sympathizing with her to an extent. I mean, we do the same with Elliot. Yeah. We obviously don't think it's okay to kill people, but like, we sympathize where she's coming from, what led her to this place. She says she
has an illness. Yeah, she has an illness. It's a mental illness, but it is an illness. And yeah, she's when she's this other person, she's not Mady.
No, she is Heather. Like, that's where I believe they're doing dissociative identity disorder, because the trauma of Stan preferring Heather and Heather embodying everything that was Hollywood has clearly switched her into this alternate persona. Because Laura even says, why don't you kill, like, she indicates that Stan is the one doing this, and she says she'll never leave Stan. Stan feels sorry for her, and then Laura wonders, why go after poor Derek? To which she replies that he's Mady? Always, that he's always laughing at her, making her out to be a fool in front of the crew. She goes to stab Laura. The phone rings. Laura begs to let her answer it, saying it might be Derek. She can tell him to come. She allows her, but by the time Laura picks up, Steele has already hung up, saying no answer. It looks like the Batman phone, doesn't it? Big red phone. Steele tells Fred to step on it, while Laura insists it was Derek and begs her to let her call him back. She says no, and Laura manages to knock her to the ground, turn on the fan as she runs up the fake mountain. Why doesn't she go for the door? Like,
because then we wouldn't have the rescue scene from Young Riley.
Yeah, from Young Riley. Oh, yes, they're climbing up there. Steele and Derek come in, And I got to point out, Stephanie's doing this in heels. And we know that she did these scenes herself for the most part. So freaking kudos to Stephanie climbing that thing in heels. Okay. And then, of course, that's when Derek yells, "It's the rescue scene from young Raleigh!" And they run up the wooden stairs, and Derek hands Steele a rope. He swings across, knocking Matey off the mountain. So that's a cute little way of ending that part of the episode. We get the tag scene. They enter the office. Steele comments on Matey, saying he hopes that they can help her. It's obvious that she's been put back in the mental institution, which I guess that's probably one of the few maybe positive things, that she's not in jail. And that they're saying like that they hope she gets the help she needs, that they're able to actually get her to a place where she's happy, because she deserves to be happy, you know.
And she deserves somebody better than Stan. That's for sure.
She deserves someone way better than Stan. Laura explains that in her disturbed mind, since Stan preferred Heather to her, she became Heather. Steele asks, wouldn't it be more logical to simply kill Heather? And Laura says it would be like committing suicide. Since the real Heather hated Derek, it was easier to go after him. So yeah, this all sort of tracks, like I said, with dissociative identity disorder, which I guess they did their homework, right? She looks up, notices a beautiful candlelit dinner on his desk. She mentions that she thought they were just going to grab a quick bite to eat. He says they should never let their work interfere with more pleasurable pursuits, and hands her a small plate with a jewelry box on it. She looks nervous as she opens it, and then slightly relieved to find a necklace. Did you get that impression?
I hadn't, but now that you mention it, and I'm running the video in the background here while we're talking, you're right. She is kind of hesitant.
Yeah, like she doesn't look like, if someone's about to say propose and they take out the little jewelry box in the movies, usually the look on the other person's face, whether it's a woman or usually a woman, is excited joy. Like, oh my gosh, unless of course she can't stand the guy, and then it's like, oh God, but like,
get me out of here.
Yeah, get me out of here. Laura has a look of like, oh no, what is he about to do? No, too fast. Like that's kind of the look on her face.
But the box is large enough that
it's big, yeah.
She shouldn't go there.
Oh, I don't know. He could have purchased a ring that's like big enough to, I could see him purchasing.
Choking elephants.
Yeah, exactly. And then he pulls out this heart-shaped necklace that looks extremely generic. And she gives him the most chaste kiss and says, thank you. And this scene feels very hollow to me. It like the afterthought of, oh, I have to be romantic. Okay, I'm going to do all of the token romantic things, but like, this does not feel like them. It doesn't feel like a gift he would give her. Like, if he were going to give her a gift that's supposed to be romantic and whatever, like, it would probably be something like the piano. Okay, I'm not saying he should put a piano in her office, but like, that was a gift that had meaning, right? That was a gift that said something unique to them. This is just like, it looks like he went to whatever jewelry place was down the road and said, you know, Monsieur, give me your greatest heart necklace and step on it or whatever. I don't know. But it's just generic. It doesn't say
that almost makes it seem as if those episodes are really, really out of order.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because you would expect this sort of thing before the piano, the big gesture, you know.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I don't know what he could have given her, but when he pulls the lids off the silver platters and it's Chef Gaston's, that feels like them. That feels like something he would do, and it's kind of sweet and also silly and ridiculous and definitely in keeping with the two of their characters. Yeah, he plans this big romantic meal and it's Chef Gaston's. That I can get behind. The necklace, though, seemed very hollow. It seemed very soap opera. Here's a necklace. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And you never see her wear it ever again.
Well, it could also just be that it was safe. You know, the piano, you might be able to make an argument that, well, this wasn't a romantic gesture. This was friend to friend. you just lost your house. You just lost everything that you had. That piano was a special thing to you. So because of our working relationship, our friendship, I did this for you as a friend. Whereas this might seem to be a little more romantic, but it's safely romantic.
I don't know. I got a lot of friends, and I've never bought any one of them a baby grand piano. So,
what kind of friend are you then?
I have not. I wouldn't buy.
Have they ever had their houses blown up though? Have they ever had their houses blown up?
To my knowledge, no. But I'll have to pull them and ask.
See, you can't compare the two. You can't.
Okay, fine. If you're going to be like that about it, fine. I'll tell them. I will call each and every one of them and say, you know what? The next time your house blows up, I will buy you a baby grand.
There you go. Yes.
And that's it.
And just watch them run out to blow up their house on purpose just so they can get the baby grand.
So yeah, he pulls the lid off the food to reveal Chef Gaston. And that's where we freeze. That's the end of the episode. So, yeah. Have we covered it all?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I will agree with your earlier statement that this is not one of the highlight episodes. I mean, it's not bad.
No, it's not bad. I like it.
It's not a great episode. It's certainly no Vintage Steele or Love Among the Steele or, it's something like that.
I think it's I think the best word would be uneven. When it's good, it's really, really good. And when it's not, you're kind of going, okay, well, I get what they were trying to do, but you need to do X, Y, and Z before this works.
It's almost like they were running out of time. We've got to get the script done and just, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. Okay, we need to throw in a romantic plot line of some kind between them. We need to throw in a complication. Let's do this. And it's like, okay, well, it probably would have worked actually even better if you just didn't and had them in more scenes together and had them bantering. They don't have to kiss in every episode or have a relationship conundrum in every episode, but it's nice to see them talk to each other. That's good. I enjoy that. That's why I watch the show. So
yeah, they could have an episode where it's just a case.
Yeah.
That works.
The banter usually fuels that in a way that even if there's nothing to do with their will they, won't they relationship, it's fun enough anyway. But when they're not in the same scenes and there's no reason for them to not be in the same scenes, then you're kind of left going, okay, well, I mean, sure. Because again, oh, shoot. Steele Crazy, after all these years, also one where they kind of separate for a good chunk of the episode. And that works because they're in rivalry with each other. Right. There's episodes later on where they take bets as to who can solve the case first. Those are fun because there's an element to it that makes sense. But this one was just and
in those episodes where they do come together, there's that banter you're talking about. That fun, that aspect of good-natured poking of fingers at each other.
Yes.
That is part of the relationship. I mean, it's not the romantic part, but it's still part of the relationship.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. That was all kind of missing out of this episode.
Yeah. But the Derek stuff, the Heather stuff, the barbs, the jabs at Hollywood, that's all chef's kiss. Pardon the pun. Chef Gaston's kiss. It's great.
Yeah.
So
you were waiting to do that, weren't you?
I really was. Yeah. All the way to the end, but I got it in there. So I think that kind of sums it up.
That's it. Yeah.
On the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, you'll find show notes, links to Amazon US, Amazon Canada, also ways that you can support us, merch, also all that kind of fun stuff. We also have social media resources and links, such as
links that you can use or your friends can use to follow the podcast in their favorite podcatcher. We'll have links to the SteeleWatching Facebook official page, the official Twitter, the official Instagram, and also
the official X. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X.
Do you understand how weird that sounds?
It does. Twitter doesn't exactly sound normal either. I'm going to point out.
Well, that's true, but at least it's X unknown. Unknown value. We solve for X.
I don't want to solve for X.
Anyway, we'll have links to all those and then link also to the Steele Watchers fan group. So You can stop by, and if you're not already a member, join. That's where a lot of good conversations and exchanges happen. So there's all that there.
It's also where a lot of funny, silly things happen. I don't know if you saw my post that I put up recently, but when I was making notes for this episode, I happened to pause it in a moment where Steele's eating, and his eyes are rolled back in his head, and he goes, "Well," and he looks like drunk. And I said, "Caption this because it's funny," and that's.
Okay, I missed that, but
you gotta go check it out.
That's one of the things I don't like about scroll bys like Facebook and X or Discord or anything like that. I like the old-fashioned forum where you actually have subject headers and you can go in and see them. And so many people just don't understand what they're missing.
I agree.
Anyway, enough of my nostalgia.
That's it. That's all she wrote. We got the next episode, which is yours, and it will be
Steel Knuckles and Glass Jaws.
It's a good title.
Which is interesting because it's one of the few episodes that broke one of their unwritten rules.
The blood isn't real. No gangsters.
Exactly.
Yeah, no gangsters. Yeah, and that's in the book too. That's in the Jeff Melvoin book. He comments on that, how they allowed that episode only because of a couple of other things.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get that book.
Got to read the book.
So yes.
All
right.
If
you're not aware of it, people, everybody, that book is out. It's on Amazon for $32 or something like that.
Yeah.
So go check it out. As soon as I win the lottery, I'm going to go buy my own copy and check it out myself. So all righty.
All right.
I got nothing else.
Same.
Bye.
I don't know why I wave. I do it every time.